had an awful dream last night, Ashley.
Oh no, what happened?
I was getting chased through a cornfield by a killer clown.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah, between that and the giant duck, I hardly got any sleep last night.
Well, I have bad news about our animal for today. Have you heard of a Harlequin duck?
A clown duck? Are you kidding me?
These ducks just look like clowns. They don't hang out in sewers. You'll be fine.
In case you forgot, I'm Parker.
And I'm Ashley.
And here's how this works. Ashley and I rate Harlequin ducks on a scale of 1 to 10 in a variety of categories. We then average our scores to get their wild rating. First up, mobility. Mobility. It's how they move. For Harlequin ducks, I'm going to give them a 7 for mobility. And for a lot of today, I think we're going to be talking about all the time they spend in the water. They're actually a sea duck, which is super cool. And they can dive up to 70 feet.
That's crazy. That's probably deeper than the height of most buildings in Wyoming.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that. And while they're down there, they can stay underwater for 45 seconds at a time, which it maybe doesn't sound that impressive. I can stay underwater for 45 seconds. But ducks are designed to be buoyant. They're designed to float. And so staying underwater is like an amount of effort. So they're probably swimming the entire time that they're under there. They're not just hanging out on the bottom. They don't have that ability. So they're really great in the water. They're just excellent divers. So I'm going to give them a 7. What rating did you give them, Ashley?
So I gave Harlequin ducks an 8, and here's why. First off, they migrate, which is when animals travel between two places. These guys winter on the Pacific coast as far away as Alaska, and then they migrate inland in the spring to breed, and that includes northern Wyoming.
Wait, so they migrate from Alaska to Wyoming?
So the ones that end up in Wyoming start more on the Pacific coast near like Washington or Oregon, but that's still like over 1,000 miles. They also migrate on an east to west pattern, and most birds do north to south. So I think that's pretty unique.
So why do they go east to west instead of north to south?
So for them, they're not so much as going from like warm climates to cold climates. They're going between these coastal ocean habitats where they eat different types of food, and then they come into the inland so that they can find different food and shelter to raise their babies.
Oh, that's super cool.
I think so. And then something that I think is actually even cooler is when they come back to breed, they go back to the stream where they were hatched at, just like salmon. So they navigate back to that exact spot over a year later from over 1,000 miles away. And I think that's so impressive. I mean, I can't even find my car in an airport parking lot without taking a picture of like where I parked it.
Maybe if you had like creeks leading from the plane to your car, you'd be able to find it easier.
I wish I could say I'm that good, but I'm not as good as a Harlequin duck, honestly. Now, let's scoot on over to size. Size is how big and how small, how short and how tall. We care about them all. So Harlequin ducks are pretty small. They're only about 17 inches long and they weigh about 1.5 pounds. That's like half the size of a mallard duck.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know why they like look bigger than that to me.
I think it's because of how cool they look, but if you see one in person, they're not very big.
Huh.
And I mean, I don't want to knock small things because there can be advantages to being small, but their size is just nothing remarkable. So honestly, I'd score them at a 3.
You know, that feels mean, but they're not like exceptionally small and they're certainly not exceptionally big. So I guess.
Yeah, it's not really an advantage.
Yeah.
So what did you rate them? I'm curious.
So I cheated a little bit and I talked about the size of their age.
Hey, that does feel like cheating, but I'm intrigued.
Yeah,
Go on.
Producer Stephanie allowed it, so I can keep going. I gave them a 5. And in terms of migrating waterfowl, so like other ducks and geese and things like that, they can be pretty old. In fact, the oldest recorded one that we know about was almost 21 years old.
Wow. So how old are most ducks?
So like mallards, which is what you use as your size example, they average like 5 to 10 years. So this is like almost double. And this isn't the average. This is like an exceptional duck, but I don't even think mallards get that old. So
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive on into accessories. Accessories are special characteristics that our animal has. I've been given license to be a little creative with our categories here. So I'm going to be creative again this time. And I'm going to give them a 5 for accessories. I'm going to give them a 5 because of their diving ability.
How is a diving ability an accessory,
It's
Parker?
a special characteristic that our animal has.
Skill. Okay, I'll go with it. Tell me more.
So Harlequin ducks, like I've already kind of mentioned, and spoiler alert, it's going to come up again, are excellent divers. And not only are they excellent divers, they are diving ducks, which if you remember our Mallard podcast, there's two main categories of ducks. There's dabbling ducks and there's diving ducks. Harlequin ducks are in that diving category. And most diving ducks stay in kind of calm waters, lakes, big flat waters like that. Harlequin ducks, like you just mentioned with their migration, kind of stay in those really rough, fast waters. And so they're not diving straight down into this peaceful lake. They're like getting in this really fast creek and getting to the bottom of it and staying under there for 45 seconds sometimes.
I could not imagine diving in a bunch of rapids or ocean waves that are crashing and then coming up, being so disoriented, figuring out where I even was, and then like eating at the same time nonetheless. That is pretty impressive.
And then probably just diving right back down.
Yeah, they're getting after it.
Yeah. What score did you give them?
So I gave them a 6, kind of close to you. And the special feature that I picked is that they're not picky eaters. They truly eat a ton of different things depending on where they're at in their migration pattern and what's available.
So like not just chicken nuggets and mac and cheese.
No, that would be pretty silly for a duck. But they do eat things like snails, clams, hermit crabs, fish eggs, aquatic insects, tiny fish. So they eat so many different things, and they can pair that not pickiness with those diving skills that you just mentioned, Parker, in order to really win at that food game. They are really good at getting their food, and they're not picky. I think that is a pretty sweet accessory combo to have.
Yeah, and it seems like you just listed all of the things that are in the water. So that's got to be really great for them.
It is. I think they use that to survive pretty well. Now, let's fly on over to style. Style is how attractive they are. Does our animal have stripes, spots, special colorations? I rated a Harlequin duck a 9 for style.
Wow, very high.
I know, right? But it is so warranted. Lots of birds, including ducks, have tons of fun, colorful feathers, but Harlequins manage to stand out even in a colorful crowd. So much so that they're named for their colorful pattern. Harlequin is another word for court jester or like an old-time clown.
See, but there are a lot of pretty things in the world that whoever named this duck could have used. Why a clown?
I don't know. I mean, the males are really striking. They're kind of gray-blue with this dramatic black outlined white stripes and spots on their head and neck. And then they have red on their sides and their head. So they might have saw that and just thought, looks like a clown.
I don't see it.
Well, that's okay because the females are mostly brown. Even they do have some fun white spots on their head, but mostly a little bit more drab than their male counterparts. What did you give them for style, Parker?
So I gave him a 3.
What?
Yeah, and don't womp me. It's not that low.
I don't know. You just said they were really beautiful.
They are most of the time. But Harlequin ducks, like most ducks, go through this process called molting. Molting is when they lose their feathers to grow new feathers, especially their flight feathers. And so this has 2 effects. 1, they're less pretty, and that's unfortunate. But 2, and more importantly, they can't fly while they're going through their molting. Yeah. And so this leads to some behavioral changes with our Harlequin ducks. Those really pretty males that you talked about, they actually have to leave the breeding grounds earlier. So like they're leaving Wyoming earlier to go back to Oregon or Washington or wherever they are in the Pacific Northwest. Because once they start molting, they can't fly. And when they can't fly, especially when they're in these like small mountain streams, they're vulnerable to a lot of predators.
Oh, that does not sound like a good time.
No. And so the females molt later in the year, and they're kind of left to defend the nest by themselves.
Well, I can see why you gave them a 3 then. That makes sense.
Yeah. And with that, let's flap on over to intimidation factor. Intimidation factor is how scary is this animal to other animals or even to us. Harlequin ducks are, maybe scary is the wrong word, but I love their like predator avoidance strategy.
And what's that?
So first off, I give them a 9, which is very high.
What?
I know, a small duck that eats invertebrates, not necessarily what comes to mind when you think of scary, but the way they avoid predators is just so cool. Some animals, run really fast. Some animals hide really well. Harlequin ducks are just like, come get me. And if you can survive where I survive in these rapids or in these when they're out on the coast, in these awful seascapes, they just pick the worst place imaginable. This is nothing would ever want to come here. What a nice place for my home. And that keeps...
Yeah, that's pretty... I could respect that.
Yeah, and that keeps all the minks and the raccoons and all the little things that might want to get after them or their babies away from them. We have other species that do this. Mountain goats come to mind of like, what if I just lived very high and you couldn't climb as good as me? But none of the other species just choose to be like battered and bruised and tossed around just to kind of spite their predators. And I love that about Harlequins.
I love that too.
What did you give them?
You gave them a 9?
Yeah.
I gave them a 1.
Ashley, get womp womp right now.
So, to be honest, I think they sound like a squeaky toy that a dog might have. Here, have a listen. Tell me that does not sound like a dog just going to town on a squeaky toy.
Okay, it's a little squeaky toy-ish, but think of where they are.
It's just not intimidating whatsoever. I mean, it's cute that because of this noise they make, they are sometimes called a sea mouse.
Oh, that's nice.
I know, it's cute, but again, this is the intimidation category, so that's not intimidating at all. Now, let's clown around to Razzle Dazzle. Razzle Dazzle are unique features that no other animal might have. So for Razzle Dazzle, I gave the Harlequin Duck an 8. And the reason why is these Harlequin Duck moms are just incredible. They lead their newly hatched babies into these fast-moving streams of rapids within 24 hours of hatching.
Wait, and that's incredible?
I mean, I think so. A lot of wildlife babies are up and at it pretty quick to survive, which is impressive all around. But there's something to be said for hitting fast water at 1 day old. Like, imagine having to hop into a raft and tackle some rapids the day after you were born, Parker.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call that solid parenting. That's like impressive babies.
Sure, so that's their Razzle Dazzle. That is a unique feature that they have. I'm sorry. I'm sticking by that 8. That is so impressive. That's difficult even for people with years of paddling experience.
No, yeah, I think the 8 is fair. I just think it's towards the ducklings, not the mom. The mom gets a 1. The ducklings get an 8.
I think that the moms have to obviously have some good skills to get those babies through that experience, right? Like, it's not just, all right, see you babies. Like, the moms are there making sure their babies don't drown, probably.
Okay, so like a whitewater rafting guide.
Yeah,
I'm tracking you now.
There you go. Exactly. What about you?
I gave him a 7. And I'll be honest, I'm still kind of stuck on my intimidation factor thing. It's just so interesting to me that they choose to live in these harsh environments. And one of the byproducts of that and of their diving nature is that they break a lot of bones.
No way.
Yeah, and we know this because we have these museum specimens or ducks that come in from hunters, and they have a lot of broken bones that have then healed, and we can see those on x-rays. And so higher than all of the other ducks, they just break bones because they choose to live such a hard life. And broken bones on most birds, because of their hollow bone structure, is like a death sentence. So the fact that Harlequins can break bones and still survive and still make it in these environments is just crazy.
That is a pretty unique feature. I'm impressed.
Now it's time for their wild rating. Their wild rating is the average number of points given for all the previous categories. Can I get a drum roll, please?
Their wild rating is a 5.8. It's an average rating for an average duck, I guess.
You know what, Ashley? How dare you? I think 5.8 is so disappointing.
I think, I gave him that 1 for the squeaky toy thing, and I'm not going to budge on that.
Yeah, so I'm going to blame this low score on you.
I'll take it. I mean, I think Harlequin ducks are super cool, but I'm going to stand by. I think that, they're a little above average there, and I think that's super fair for this duck. They're a really cool critter, lots of cool adaptations, but...
All right. Well, now that we've learned about the Harlequin duck, you may be interested in experiencing them in nature. There are a few options, but before you head out and do these activities, always keep your safety in mind. That involves never approaching wildlife, and especially Harlequin ducks. I'm going to warn you right now, you're not as good of a swimmer as they are, so you don't want to end up in these rapids that they spend most of their time in. Ashley, how can we get out and experience Harlequin ducks?
Well, because of how striking they look and their impressive ability to navigate whitewater, Harlequin ducks can be really great subjects for photography. The first time I saw a Harlequin duck, I got a really nice picture with my cell phone. From a good distance, of course.
Of course.
And I credit about 99% of that to their really cool coloration and the background of just crashing waves. If you want to see them in Wyoming, you'll want to check out turbulent rivers or streams in the northwest part of the state during their breeding season, which is early summer, like May. Well, that was fun. I'm already looking forward to the next episode. Are you?